r/ask Reddit. What's the most ridiculous rule in your place of work? I once needed a pen. Figured this was a reasonable ask. Went to the supply closet on my floor, which was locked. Asked the floor's admin. She told me to go to the main supply room in the basement. Went to the basement and explained my situation of needing a pen. They told me all requests for supplies must be approved by my department head. Problem is, being new, I'd never met my department head. She also worked in San Francisco. I worked in Milwaukee, so I needed to send an email both introducing myself and asking her if I had permission to get a pen from the supply closet. Well, did you get the pen or not? In my first 1x1 with my boss, she asked me how everything was going. I said fine, but explained that I wasn't able to get a pen, which made taking notes in meetings difficult. She got up, went to her desk, and grabbed me a handful of pens. All recreational activity is forbidden on company time and resources, except fantasy football. That's why I got my boss into Reddit. If you want something unblocked on the network, you make sure a director level wants it unblocked. No IT worker will block Reddit. 2 weeks after I left my previous job, a memo went round saying people aren't allowed to look out of the windows at work anymore. It's a big ass glass building. Edit. To answer those that have been asking, it's not American Express. Eyes shifting. Okay, this one is just stupid. Why? Edit. Jesus. 9k upvotes for this? I don't understand Reddit sometimes. Apparently it was unprofessional. The new manager came in and made a bunch of ridiculous rules. I'd been there almost 2 years at that time and couldn't be asked any more within a month of her being there. And as a pessimistic British adult, I do not respond well to saying in team meetings what I did today that made me proud. If anything, it brings me closer to raging and flipping all the desks over. No accusing other staff members of being witches. Open bracket. Yep, it happened, so we had to make a rule. I run a hostel in Uganda. Sounds like a hostile work environment. Which is exactly the kind of rule a witch would create. I used to work for a large bank. We had an attendance policy that was so complicated it actually created an incentive for employees to take an entire day off rather than be tardy too often. My high school had that too. If you were late enough to miss first period, you got a cut, which was a detention. Even being late to first period 3 times counted as a cut, which was another detention. An absence was just an absence. No cuts, no detentions. My school has a rule where you came in more than 2 hours or so later, they just counted you as absent for the day, but also punished you for being late. So anytime you have an appointment or just oversleep by a little bit, you may as well just abandon the whole day. We can't ask others if they want to come grab a coffee in the break room. Just develop a subtle nod that means the same thing. Slap on the bum and a wink. We have a lock on the first aid kits, so if you just need a band-aid for a cut, you have to get the key from the safety guy, which in turn makes it a reportable accident with mountains of paperwork and investigations. We use an unbelievable amount of duct tape now. Duck that. I'd be keeping a box of band-aids in a rarely used drawer or hidden away somewhere. A new highly encouraged suggestion at my job is no drawers in your work area. I drive valet. The company handbook says you're never allowed to back up, ever. You absolutely cannot do the job without reverse. It's impossible. It's in there because of liability and our insurance policy. This way it can always be the valet's fault if an accident occurs ever. Edit. Perhaps this will answer the most repeated question. If the rule says no reverse, yet you're expected to park a car, then how can you park the car? Answer. Never hit anything, and always reverse despite the rules. Expect to be fired should you hit anything in reverse, but probably not. The rule only exists to cover the company's ass. But if they don't feel threatened by you working there and you're an asset, you still will not be fired. And yes, many people are questioning the legality of it, and you're right. It wouldn't hold up in courts, but it's in the handbook and it's silly, so I posted it. Malicious compliance. Oops, sorry I drove through the fence with your 80k car, but my employee handbook says I can't back up. All the extra toilet paper in the building has to stay in a single closet where it can be overseen by the toilet paper queen. I heard her shrieking the other day when she discovered someone had hoarded one spare roll of toilet paper upstairs so the people who work upstairs wouldn't have to walk down multiple flights of stairs when the toilet paper ran out. Edit. It's the cheapest one-ply toilet paper available on the giant rolls that only fit in the special dispensers. I can't imagine anyone wanting to steal it. We had a rule like that, so we all pooled $1 and bought our own TP at Costco. Double ply. At first managers were happy that they saved money on TP. Employees were mad that the company should pay for our TP. But it was a very unifying experience. Eventually managers tried to woo us back to their side when they realized people were sharing pay information and just generally creating a united front. I hope Toilet Paper Queen is actually her title. A rule that said if you have time to lean, you have time to clean, which fairly obviously meant if there was no work then you should be cleaning things. It was at an aircraft servicing station that was fairly small, but we needed a crew of at least 3 people for larger planes. The problem was that sometimes there were just no planes, so there was no work. We would clean for a couple hours and then just run out of stuff to clean. But according to management, that was no good. We had to be busy. It got to be that we would fight over work when it came in because everyone was so bored, and finding pretend busy work was much harder than just working. I remember getting the crew together to pick up pebbles off the taxiway for a couple hours. There's an old joke in aviation, go sweep the taxiway. So we actually did it. FS. Why is there a mechanic vacuuming the lawn between taxiway A7 and B7? Because his boss is an idiot. I used to work for Amazon in Ireland and their toilet breaks were crazy. Maximum of 10 minutes a day but also a max of 20 minutes per week. You had to change the status on your computer so everything was recorded and some managers would call you out on it and even go as far as threaten your job. I had an understanding with my manager and told him if I need to take a shit then I am going for it. Like any good manager, he just told me that as long as I give him the numbers he wants then I could do what I want. Edit. This has seriously blown up, so I thought I had to add that I was treated with great respect while working there and thoroughly enjoyed the experience. I can't speak for other employees in the business, but I have heard the stories. Incidentally, I now work in construction where someone isn't looking over your shoulder and checking every minute of every day. If you haven't seen the great movie Office Space, watch it. Describes my situation perfectly. To answer your other question, my manager was looking for performance numbers. I was the one looking for 1s and 2s. WTF did you do? Why does Amazon sound like a dictatorship? Like, was it software development? Amazon is really crazy with their productivity rules. Some people put up with it because for certain sectors having Amazon on your resume is a huge plus, but others sadly because they don't have any other job prospects. When I was in the military I saw a buddy of mine sitting outside crying. I went and consoled him best as I could. Apparently he was just depressed and unhappy. After he was feeling a bit better I went to go and find someone to tell them what was happening. They knew. In fact, he had been crying so much lately that they had instituted a no crying at your desk policy, which is why he was outside. Dear God, what the duck? The AF has something called ALS, which stands for Airman Leadership School. Basically a simplistic how to be a supervisor sort of thing. The teacher asked the class what we would do if someone was crying at their desk. I had a good laugh when I told her how my squadron had handled this. Edit. Many people have missed the fact that I am the OP of this comment chain, so they don't understand the ending of the story. The ending is, they instituted a no crying at your desk policy. Sorry for the confusion. Empty inbox. My boss was an inbox Nazi. Like if you had old emails in there he would flip and make you respond to them or delete them. Apparently you shouldn't have anything left at the end of the day. Deal with them or delete them. Joke's on him though. I just made a subfolder marked personal and everything went in there. Get ducked, Bill, you old wanker. What happens if you need to find something from an old email? Of course you print all emails and put them in a filing cabinet. Silly. I used to work for the now long defunct books, movies, and music store Media Play. Just one of the 285 reasons that poorly run business ran into the ground was the tardy attendance policy. If you were literally 1 second late clocking in, even hours before the store opened. It was a really big deal. You'd not only be formally written up, but lectured like a child, oftentimes berated even if you were tardy 3 times. Bye bye. However, if you no-showed and then called 2 hours later saying you were sick, okay, thank you, feel better. This trained everyone to just take a sick day instead of being half a second late to work. I can't tell you how many times you'd see a co-worker screeching into the parking lot before work after fighting traffic from a wreck or whatever, noticing it was 8:01, and then slowly driving off to go home and feign being sick. This was particularly upsetting when it was a pull-down stock week when we needed every hand on deck but had unusually early shifts. My job years ago tried to implement a very strict attendance policy like that, where if you were 1 second late you would get written up. Till one Saturday a guy who had worked there for like 30 years shows up to work 30 seconds late. They pull him into the office and write him up. He then gets up and tells them he's going home. Working Saturdays was voluntary and he basically said, I don't have to be here today so I'm going home. He was doing them a favor by working that day, but when they wrote him up for being 30 seconds late he basically ducked them over by just going home. That policy didn't last too much longer. For the most part, if you're a few minutes late it's no big deal at all. If you're late all the time they'll have a word with you or write you up. But they understand shit happens sometimes that's out of your control to cause you to be late. Yes, screwing over company veterans is historically a bad move in business. Glad that guy had the balls to leave and the rule was cancelled. There was an issue where there was too much socializing going on the factory floor, particularly when people were working while sitting down. False, skewed supervisor perception. So they made everybody stand. When that presented ergonomics problems, they brought in these weird chairs that made you sit at a slant, had no backs, and no wheels, so they wouldn't cause distractions. No part of it made any sense. I feel it. At my old job as a pet bather at a pet chain, we had a stool in the salon to sit at while using the computer, and I had a personal step stool for sitting while brushing large dogs on the floor. The cashiers next door complained that they weren't able to sit, yet we were. So all stools were ordered out of the salon. I thus had to kneel, squat or sit on the floor to brush every dog over 75 pounds. You try convincing a Labrador that the short table that goes up into the air is safe for a dog his size. Sounds like typical PetSmart bullshit. Had some insight to their operation. Employees mean nothing to this chain. You're just faceless spacifillers used to transfer cash from the customer's pocket into the register. You don't matter. I don't know if it's standard, but I worked at a place where HR wasn't allowed to tell us if someone was fired. It was a big enough place that you might not immediately realize someone had left, and when you found out, you weren't supposed to ask why. So, if you wanted to know if they were fired, you asked, was there cake? Which was to say that, if the person had retired or left pleasantly after a number of years, they would be given a party with cake. If they were fired, not so much. I haven't seen Brian for some time. Brian is no longer with us. Brian no longer works here. Was there cake? Edit. Clarifying that Brian is alive in this scenario, except for below where I said he was dead for karma. So did Brian get a ducking cake or not? The suspense man. Brian's dead. Fireman. Our risk management department decided long ago that poles were too risky for us, so we use the stairs. We have poles. Anyway, now the newest rule is no free weights, as in no free weights to work out. Stay fit, go into burning high rise absolutely. Walk around the station carrying 40 pounds dumbbells. Too risky. I feel you. My FD just got some workout equipment, rowing machine and bike. It had been delayed due to liability concerns, but we actually have a fire pole that we use. It's all very confusing. If you are 1 minute late it is a tardy. If you take a half day nothing goes on your record. I was told to just take a half day if you are going to be late because they straight up fire you for tardies. Also, if you clock out early it is a tardy. If you have to go to the doctor on lunch break and it is going to take an hour and 10 minutes, take the rest of the day off. Weird. I used to work at a place in which my boss implemented a no more than 2 glasses a day water policy. What a dunt. I ignored this rule and complained directly to our CEO, and the matter ended later that day. What was weird though was the majority of people actually followed the rule, and some even shopped me up to HR about breaking the rules. I left not long after that because not only was my boss a bellend, but if my colleagues were going to HR over me drinking water, then I obviously couldn't trust them. But they love being superior because dehydration delirium. Woo. Old job of mine in a warehouse. Our stations were pretty far apart, so when we listened to music we'd all usually have our own stuff playing. Not a problem since you could barely hear the neighbor's music. Well, the CEO didn't like hearing multiple songs when walking through the warehouse. He made a rule that we all either had to listen to the same music, or none at all. I'd put on the same song but everyone started 15 seconds apart. Can't have my hands in my pockets. Laughs in Warrant Officer. Laughs in DD 214. Many years ago I was a vacuum cleaner salesman. There were songs about this particular brand of vacuum cleaner and how awesome it was. Every morning, we had to sing these songs as a group. In fairness, it was a pretty quality item. Edit. It was Kirby. Didn't mean to be subversive. Just didn't think anybody would care. In fairness, it was a pretty quality item. It's okay man. You're free now. You don't need to sing the song anymore. No lunch bathroom break in a 12-hour shift. Retail pharmacist here. I eat pee on the run. That sounds pretty illegal. I've worked retail pharmacy in the US. It's sadly not illegal. There's a push to change it but it hasn't taken off yet. Once worked at a place where some minibus decided that since UPS trucks don't turn left, we shouldn't either. I don't know or care how well that worked out for UPS. But this was a goddamned ambulance company with a 911 contract. I will turn left if and when I ducking need to turn left. Edit. Follow up. I don't know if UPS trucks turn left or not, or if that is beneficial for them or not. And frankly I don't care. The point is that minibus thought they did. And that was the reasoning he gave. He was an idiot. I did not stay there long. It's not even true that UPS trucks never turn left. http://www.cnn.com The 16th of February 2017 World Ups Trucks No Left Turns Index. HTML They do when it makes sense. Business casual dress code even when I work at home. Open bracket. They Skype me to check. WTF. Why? What business are you in? Exactly my thoughts on it. I'm an intern for a small logistics company. Do not put half-used sweeteners back in the sweeter tray. Throw them away. I work with adults. We have signs up in the toilets reminding people to flush the toilet before leaving the cubicle and to wash their hands. Apparently many people lose these abilities as they become adults. I worked as a call receiver. We never saw a customer. We were only on the phones with them. Rule: your hair must only be a natural color. I dyed my hair the same exact color that someone from a different shift had. I was reprimanded. I told them that if the rule is not enforced for everyone, they couldn't single me out. Their reasoning for letting the other person have that color but not me. Mine was my real hair, dyed an unnatural color. Hers was a weave that could be changed very easily. Really? Then why hasn't she been asked to change her hair? Because that shit is expensive. They gave up trying to convince me they were in the right. I had a boss who didn't like the outrageous color I had in my hair. I'm a natural redhead. One of my sisters actually got fired from a job for something similar. She's a natural blonde, but kept her hair dyed red for years. When she decided to go back to her natural hair color to cut expenses, professional dye jobs are cheap, her boss flipped out and insisted that she go back to red, pointing out that the company had a rule that prohibited dyed hair. He didn't believe her when she pointed out that this was her natural hair color, and fired her for insubordination and violating company policy when she flat out refused to go red again. Actually, she did offer to go red again if the company paid the styling bill. When she went in to pick up her last check a few days later, she took a handful of pictures of her younger self to prove that blonde really was her natural color. Her boss just looked at them and said, "That just means you've been violating company policy for years, and that I should have fired you a long time ago. Don't bother using us as a reference." She was talking to a lawyer about a possible lawsuit, but I don't think anything ever came of it. If we want to take a full 5-day week off, we need to use 2 vacation days, 1 personal, and 2 more vacation days. Can never use 3 vacation days straight. We work alternating days, 3 on 4 off, 4 on 3 off. If you take vacation on your short week, which is 3 working days, they dock you 5 vacation days for taking an entire week off. How is that legal? My dad told me this one a while back. He used to work for a PR firm. The way he described the office environment. Think The Office but in the 1980s. The company hired a corporate efficiency specialist to come in and improve things. She came in and implemented all kinds of rules, which seemed to follow some sort of caste system. Her philosophy was, the higher your office rank, the more perks you get. Her idea of perks, number of pictures you are allowed in your cubicle, whether you are allowed to have a potted plant or not. Coffee mugs were only allowed to senior employees. Others had to use paper cups. Being allowed to leave the office for lunch was also considered a perk. Needless to say, a coup soon followed, and she was tossed out on her hinny. That doesn't sound like it makes anything efficient. It efficiently lowers staff morale. Old workplace had assigned desk location for various things like phone and stapler. You were also only allowed 2 personal items on your desk. I was written up BC. I brought my own red stapler and it didn't fit in between the lines put on the desk. You should have burned that place down. That sounds like a place where I would sit and plan for hours to bring something in that is extremely inconvenient for them but still adheres to their ridiculous rules. I work in retail and we have on-call shifts. Your name will be listed on the schedule for a certain time as a call-in. So you have to call 1 hour before your shift to figure out if they need you to work for the day. For example, you would be listed as on call for 2 PM and wouldn't know until 1 PM if you were working that evening. If you don't call in, it's considered not showing up for a shift. But there's no extra pay for the shift whether they need you or not. So for 3 days of the week, I don't know if I have to work or not. Can't make any solid plans to do anything except call my work and ask if they need me. I can't imagine having children or elderly that need taking care of because it would be such a hassle to arrange care for them just an hour before having to work. Edit. Okay folks, I get it. You want me to sue this corporate demon. I'm looking into it now and will update with any relevant developments. I'm going to dig up my contract tomorrow and see if I can speak to a lawperson. Thanks for motivating me. This is actually illegal. I actually won money from a lawsuit against Victoria's Secret and their on-call policy. Yep, I had a feeling. I brought it up to my manager and she said you consented to it in your contract, which I later looked over and found some very vague wording on scheduling to essentially cover the ass of the company. I've heard a lot of backlash lately in the news because it's such a shady practice to cut down on scheduling costs, but I never thought to sue. I actually just put in my notice to quit because the stress of not knowing when I had to work was just too much. At my old job, HR held a meeting to tell us that there was too much swearing on the sales floor. Someone raised their hand and pointed out that swearing is very common in our industry and that is the way that our customers speak. HR later sent out a memo explaining that swearing should be limited to conversations with clients. It was amazing. Please only swear when in the presence of a customer. All customers should be greeted with a jolly "what the duck is up?" or a chipper "who the duck shat on you today you bastard." Any attempts to not insult or demean our customers will be written up. Duck you and have a great day, HR. If you are stuck in traffic on the way to work, you must email the CEO. Phone calls and texts are not permitted. Only email. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.